Whenever I'll hit a roadblock in a manuscript, I'll think, well, I should be marketing the other books. Do you know what I mean? So then I will flick away and I'll contact a local bookstore, or I'll reach out to a podcast host, and then I kind of tell myself, okay, you're not working on that manuscript, but you're doing marketing for the other works. And that's just as important.
Hi friends, this is Read and Write with Natasha podcast. My name is Natasha Tynes and I'm an author and a journalist. In this channel, I talk about the writing life, review books, and interview authors. Hope you enjoy the journey. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Read and Write with Natasha. So today we have with us Liz Alterman, who is the author of the book The Perfect Neighborhood. All right, so Liz has the funniest bio I've ever read. So listen to this. She lives in New Jersey with her husband and 3 sons. She spends most days repeatedly microwaving the same cup of coffee and looking up cinnamons. So this is just hilarious and funny, which brings me to the first question, which is about humor. But before I start asking you about humor, Liz, welcome to the show and thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me, Natasha. I'm thrilled to chat with you this morning.
So obviously you're funny. It's from your bio, and I read a few articles about remote learning and llama, my Chrome is dead. So which cracked me up. So yeah. So your book. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I try to work out some of my personal frustrations through humor. And I think remote learning was really kind of pushing me over the edge at the point where I wrote that.
I also try to incorporate humor in anything I write. It doesn't always work, but I try. But your book deals with a bit of a dark topic. And so I'm going to let you tell us a bit about this book. And if you manage to somehow include humor in, while you're writing about a dark topic.
Oh, thanks for asking. So The Perfect Neighborhood is set in an affluent suburb, and I've lived in New Jersey most of my life. And so while it's a fictional town in the novel, it is sort of based on different communities where I've lived in New Jersey. And I think there's always a lot of room for humor within sort of the parenting community, that, gossipy kind of who's keeping the secrets about when registration is for the good soccer teams or the basketball teams, or who's the best math tutor, but they may not want to share that information in case you bump their child out of the way. So the book centers on this neighborhood, Oak Hill, where initially all the gossip focuses on a model and an actress, Allison Langley, who leaves her husband, who's a former rock star, and sort of they seem like this golden couple in the neighborhood. But when she leaves him in the middle of the night, everyone's gossiping. Is she coming back? What went wrong in their marriage? If they can't make it work, how can we make it work? And then fast forward 2 months, and a little boy, Billy Barnes, goes missing on his walk home from kindergarten. And suddenly all of these people think, we were focused on the wrong thing. We were looking at the Langleys and their marriage, and we should have been worrying about possibly a predator in our midst. And, they were so comfortable in this nice area that they thought really nothing could touch them. And so even though it is kind of a dark, I would say hopefully suspenseful novel, I did try to bring in humor in just those characters of the kind of women and parents that you meet in a community like this. And then we do learn where Allison has gone, and the woman that she's living with, her old friend, I tried to bring in humor through that woman's voice, because that friend, they've been out of touch, but they've reconnected. So Viv doesn't necessarily know everything that's gone on in Allison's past. So she brings a bit of comic relief, I think, to the novel, because she's this single gal in Manhattan, just, trying to have a good time. And she wants Allison to join her in kind of her hijinks. And Allison is kind of trying to reconcile what happened to her what led her to leave Oak Hill.
Okay, so it is set in suburbia. And does the name of the neighborhood is Oak Hill, right?
Right.
Does it exist in real life, or did you invent
No,
it?
it's sort of a composite of all different areas, and it's funny. Where I live now, people will say, "Oh, you based this on this town," and then the town where I grew up, people will think it's based on that town, and another town where I worked, people will think, "Oh, you based it on that," but really they're so similar. It's sort of a composite of everything.
Okay, so why suburbia? I mean, like suburbia usually gets a bad rep in general. Like you have desperate whatever how housewives,
Right.
and this is always like these bad things happen in suburbia. Like think of Dateline when like in this quiet suburban town where nothing happens. So and like, is that a new trend now that everyone is picking on suburbia? And it's it's like I live in suburbia too, and I can see why it inspires you. But why suburbia? Why did you pick suburbia? Why not like a thriving city like New York or so?
That's a good question. I think I was kind of going off of the write what you know. And so I think for me, over the years, I've been in my home almost 23 years. And so I guess I had thought about different like characters that I've known or situations that seem almost ripe for writing about, and how everyone sort of knows a little bit of a piece of information about someone else or about the town, and I wanted to kind of play with that and just and explore it a little further. But I love novels set in cities as well. So I think for me, I was just trying to go with what felt close to me or what felt appealing as a setting.
Okay, and so you have three boys, right? Three
I
boys.
do, yes.
Okay, and so you're pretty busy,
Right.
and
Really keep me busy.
so I'm curious about your writing style. So this is your first novel, correct?
Well, I actually wrote a young adult thriller that
Okay,
came out in April of 2021. And
okay,
then I've also written a memoir that
okay.
came out, I guess, in November of 2021, and it's available through Audible on audio. It's called Sad Sacked, but it'll be out in print next June.
Nice. Okay, that's
Thank
exciting.
you.
What's the memoir about?
The memoir is about a period when my husband and I lost our jobs within 6 weeks of each other.
Okay,
So he had been in his job for about 18 years, and he knew there were some layoffs coming, but so far he had avoided them until one November day when he, I guess, was let go in about a group of 50 employees. And initially he was super excited because he got a nice severance package, and he had kind of been not so happy there,
okay,
but he had this almost sense of security. There were good benefits. It was a role that, he knew how to do the job. It was fine. And he was kind of complacent. So he was looking at this layoff initially as almost the kick in the pants that he needed to get out there and find something new. And for me, I had only been in my role maybe about 2 years when I
okay.
was let go. The company was kind of just laying off people by the hundreds, and they were getting ready to be taken over by another company. But so I guess I was initially panicked because I had seen my colleagues being laid off and not being able to find new positions. So the whole book sort of focuses on how my husband and I, we're home together, which I joke, people say for better or worse, but not for lunch. Suddenly we're looking at each other all the time, and we've got these three kids who are kind of. It was funny. My middle son, Ben, he just couldn't seem to process that his dad had lost a job, because my husband would come down and he would be like, wait, Dad, you still don't have a job? You're still here? What do you
Yeah,
do? Wait, why is Dad here? And we'd have to
yeah,
be like, Ben, Dad doesn't have it. Like, it just seemed like he, kids, they're in their own world and doing
yeah.
their own thing. And it would be like, wait, Dad still doesn't have a job? So it's kind of how we had different approaches. And I just wanted to get right back to work. And we live in an older home. And so I was kind of hoping if we could get back to work, we could use that severance package to like repair the poor plumbing and our deck that was falling off the house and make those home improvements. And my husband was more like, I'm joining a gym and I'm getting fit and I'm going to take time for that personal stuff I missed when I was riding the train at 5:30 in the morning. So it's kind of all about our different approaches and how that impacts our marriage and our family and just the job market in general. It had changed so much. We would find these applications that would say, tell us your personal theme song or give us an elevator pitch about our company in 140 characters or less. And we were just kind of like, what is going on? This is crazy.
So I hope you guys are okay now in terms of the job scene, which the question is now is, are you writing full time or are you employed now, like
I'm
9 to
trying
5?
to write another novel, but I'm also taking on freelance projects as they come in and trying. But I feel like at the time when I wrote the memoir, being unemployed, people didn't really want to hear about it. I had an agent, she sent it out, and people would say, nobody wants to talk about unemployment. This was maybe in 2018. So I feel like once the pandemic hit and we saw such widespread layoffs, I feel like it's taken a bit of the stigma away from unemployment. So, and I feel like so many people have had to weather that storm that I hope the story resonates with more people and as people find it.
Okay. So for me, it's also like a matter of mindset. Like, you're a published author, you're working on a second now, you're doing freelance. Why would you call yourself unemployed? Because the whole like idea of employment changed, so as a full-time writer, you still want to be in the rat race of the 9 to 5. And is writing full-time not enough either financially, or it is also for your self-esteem as well?
That's a great question. Well, I did have a 9 to 5, or I guess I would call it 8 to 6, or maybe round the clock. I had taken a job with a fintech company as a communications manager. I guess maybe let's say April of 2021, and then unfortunately, the role shifted about 6 months in, and I found myself just going to these 4-hour meetings where people were they would, let's say, post a slideshow or a PowerPoint presentation, and we would spend 30 minutes debating the background color. Do we like teal? Do we like purple? And I was just kind of like, am I on a hidden camera show? I couldn't believe it. And so that was really kind of a wake-up call for me that I think I'm done in terms of the corporate side of things. Just because when you're freelance, you have that hustle. You take a project, you do your best, you turn it around, you wait for edits, you invoice, and you're done. And then you take your next project so that you can keep your paycheck coming in. And for these things, I guess with the way at least corporate America was going at that time, I couldn't understand having 20 people in a 4-hour meeting and at the end really have not accomplished anything and say, okay, we're going to meet back next Wednesday and we'll keep hashing this out. And I just thought this is not how I am used to doing business.
Okay. So are you satisfied now with being a full-time writer? Is that enough?
That's a good question. I think personally, like in terms of fulfillment, I enjoy that. I try to take on some side projects, maybe writing an essay or a humor piece as the idea comes to me. Would I say financially that it's enough? No, I don't think so. So I definitely think my second child will head to college in the fall. And I keep joking, either I have to sell a novel or I have to really
or sell the child.
Sell a child, sell a novel, sell an organ. I don't know. Something has to give.
Well, I mean, it is, you can do it. Honestly, you can live off your writing, and there are ways around that. We can chat about it later on. But if money was not the issue, you would do this full time.
Right, I would.
Okay. So it's doable. Just let me tell you that. So, okay. So how is the book doing? I remember I was at Barnes and Noble a few months ago and I saw your book there. I got so excited. I was like,
Oh,
wow, I'm interviewing a celebrity.
oh, thank you. Thank
So,
you.
so if you can tell me a bit about, the feedback that you got, if anything about how people received it, how are you marketing? Is it you or your did you hire a PR company? Is it your publisher? Let's just talk about how the book is doing.
Sure, thanks. I guess I would say I've been really gratified to see that readers have enjoyed it, at least, or if they're not enjoying it, at least they've had the courtesy to not tag me and let me know.
Okay.
So I appreciate that. I think people have said, I read it quickly. It was a fast read, which that's what another friend of mine and I, she's a writer as well, and we were talking about how, some books are like life changing, but we were saying what we set out to do with our books, which fall more in the psychological suspense category, we're just looking to entertain readers, to have, maybe you have a book on your nightstand and you look forward to getting back to it that night. Like that was kind of my goal. I wanted to provide entertainment for readers, and I hope that I've done that. And recently I was very fortunate that some neighbors, which they were kind of joking because they were saying we were waiting to see ourselves in this book as characters, because of course they've lived in this town with me for 2 decades, but they read the book for their book club and they invited me to join them. So that was a real treat to get to talk to readers and kind of for people who aren't writers, I think they don't know everything that goes into the process of maybe getting an agent and hoping to sell a novel and different paths to publishing. So that was neat to talk about. But in terms of marketing, Crooked Lane put out the book in the US and Legend put it out in the UK. And so both of them were really helpful in terms of securing blog tours, getting advanced reader copies out. And, and I love the bookstagrammers who have taken such creative photos. I love seeing the book. I saw someone take it to Hawaii on vacation. I saw, it's been out in the Midwest. It's out in the UK. I can't remember if someone took it to Spain, but I got to see, I said, I wish I could travel alongside this novel and hit all of these fun destinations. But that's been really great. But I think, so many books come out every single day that it's such a saturated market. And you sometimes feel as if you're, either too self-promotional or you're shouting into a void. So I think it's very hard to strike that balance between thinking, oh my gosh, people are so sick of hearing about this book, or am I coming across as too self-promoting? But then at the same time, you think, if I want this book to find readers, I have to keep putting myself out there. And I've been very fortunate. Local bookstores have been very supportive in having me, come for a few hours and either do a reading or just sit and sign books. So I really appreciate all of that support too.
Nice. So did you get any negative feedback? It's kind of part of the gig, right? We all get negative feedback. But I hope you didn't. But if you did, how did you deal with it?
I think it's par for the course. I think you'll find people who will say, I guessed every twist. I knew from a third of the way through, I knew who the villain was, and I saw this coming. And then I just kind of take it in stride. I feel like not every book is meant for every reader. I know I won't say which title, but I just got an audiobook from the library and I made it 8 hours into the book. And I just thought, you know what? I'm not loving this. And this is a book that's like a huge bestseller. And I just thought, you know what? Somebody else is waiting for this book. I'm just going to hit return and I'm going to move on to the next one. And I think that's, we're fortunate that we have so many different genres to choose from that I can't realistically expect that this book is going to hit with everyone. And just yesterday, I was talking to someone about a book that I loved in 2022. And she said, yeah, I know everybody loved that, but I just thought it was, And so that's the game, I guess. Not everything is going to be a 5-star read for every reader.
What was feedback that gutted you the most? That really went, yeah.
I guess I saw one reader say, oh, I found so many plot holes. And I just wanted to say to her, okay, would you like to outline those? But there was something else that made me think, that she put in. Maybe she had the wrong character name, or
Mm.
there was something where I thought, you know what, maybe she didn't necessarily take the time. So I can't say for sure, but I wanted to write back and say, okay, could you list those? Because I'd love, just to either have the opportunity to explain maybe something, or to think about it going forward, what didn't necessarily work for her. But like I said, I think there was a bit of something in there that was like a clue that maybe there was some skimming involved, or
Mm.
maybe, I don't know. It's hard to say.
So, how did you find your agent? And how was the process? And, I just want to know about the publishing journey.
Well, I would say for this book, I sold it on my own to Crooked Lane. I didn't have an agent by the time I started querying this. So I sent it to Crooked Lane and to a bunch of publishers that didn't require agents.
Okay.
And I ended up with 5 offers, which
Oh,
was
wow.
it was a shock, because after I had a few agents before this, and with my memoir and with my young adult thriller, and I would get some lovely rejections, like, oh, I really love the plot, but then you get those conflicting ones that'll say, some people will say, I love the voice, and then but the pacing didn't work for me, and then you
Okay.
get the next one that'll say, I loved the pacing, but I just didn't connect to the
Yeah.
voice. Or
Yeah.
people would say, I love this, I don't know how to break it out. So I felt like after all of those rejections, to get multiple offers on this book was just a delightful surprise for
Okay.
me. So it
Yeah.
was a shock, but it was exciting. But I will say, as I've been working on other books, I do have an agent now, and I found her just through querying a new work. And so that's been exciting to have somebody kind of in my corner as a kind of protecting me and as a cheerleader, and kind of opening up the field to other publishers as well.
So, the reason that you went without an agent is because you just did not want to wait to find an agent, or what was your thought process?
I guess if I could be honest, I would say that I had spoken to different people during the process of this, and I had an offer from one agent, and I thought she was lovely and great. And then as we got a little deeper into it, she wanted to make a lot of changes to the story. And I
Okay.
sort of came away thinking that maybe I would be ghostwriting her book. The idea that she had, it was definitely a larger rewrite. And then,
Okay.
I had someone else who was working with me, and then, she just sort of ghosted me. And
Yeah.
later, when I said, like, this isn't working for me, I'm going to go my own way, she came back with a lot of excuses about why she had disappeared like that. But I felt like I had reached out enough times that she could have at any point let me know, I have this situation going on, and I'm sorry, I'll be in touch down the line. And so I just decided I wanted to move forward on my own. Because I think, like you say, that waiting, I think, can really kind of impact your, I guess, enthusiasm for your next project. And I think there's so much self-doubt in writing, and so much isolation, that you sort of feel like if somebody is not with you, it's maybe better to go it alone. And that was kind of my thinking.
Would you consider self-publishing?
I think I would, especially, I know it can be, I think you're doing so much marketing now on your own as an author. I think a publisher, they have limited resources, limited staff. And as I was saying, I think they're putting out new books constantly. So those authors, as your book is in the pre-order phase and then the launch phase, those authors take up so much of their time and attention, and that's just natural and how it is. So I think you end up doing so much marketing on your own. And to your question earlier, I didn't hire a publicist. I think because my background is kind of in journalism and in pitching ideas. So I thought, let me just try this myself and see how that goes. And so I think if I hadn't had that background, I might have hired somebody. But I figured, let me just give this a go, write the pitch letters and see what I can do on my own. But I think self-publishing, if you're doing a lot of the work anyway, I think it gives you a lot of control. If you want to keep your title, if you want to design your own cover, if you know that you're going to have to put in so much time into marketing and blog tours and outreach. So I can definitely see where people would want to turn to that. And I think it's something that I would be open to, definitely.
Mm. So what's your next book about?
Oh, thanks for asking. I'm working on one right now that follows two families. The moms are very good friends, and their sons, who are in their 20s, are very good friends as well. And these two boys, or young men, they live at a ski resort right now. And one afternoon they go skiing together, and only one of them returns. And so it's kind of about where is that missing son, and how the families go about, can that friendship stay intact if, the son who comes home, his actions make them a little bit suspicious. Like, did he do everything right to try to find the missing friend? So it sort of explores a lot of different points of view, the two moms, what's going on with the guy who does return home, and then their siblings, and how, what's going to happen within those families, the drama that surrounds trying to maintain a friendship under extreme, scary circumstances.
Where did you get this idea from?
That's a good question. I think I had seen a news article that was almost like the catalyst for that.
Okay. So what is your writing routine? Or do you have a routine, or do you wait for inspiration? What is your day like in terms of writing?
Oh, well, I try to, after I make that coffee and then microwave it 16 times, I usually...
Yeah, like this one here. Yeah.
Exactly. I sit down at my laptop and I try to... I like the idea of trying to write chronologically, like starting... So in this book that I'm working on now, we start off on a Saturday, and we're moving forward as this guy is missing, and we're trying to find him. But sometimes I don't have the ideas for what to do in the next chapter. But if I know that a scene is coming up ahead that I'm excited to write, I try to at least do something so that my day isn't me just kind of staring into space or scrolling through social media as I wait for inspiration. So I'll try to write ahead if I have an idea, or outline something that I know is going to come later. But it is hard. I wish I were one of those people who could plot out everything and have a neat outline to go back and fill in. But I think, unfortunately, I seem to get the ideas during the writing process. Like, I have to kind of be in it to figure it out. And that's kind of how it goes, which can be frustrating, especially as if I write something and then realize, okay, I have to scrap it. That's not going to work.
Do you write every day? Rain or shine? What time? Okay.
I try to write while my kids are out of the house, usually from about 9 to 3. And then
that's a long writing time. You
right.
I don't stop from 9 to 3. Okay.
Definitely not nonstop. I kind of, because I freelance on the side, I'm kind of responding to emails or working on side projects, or maybe I'll have an idea for an essay or a humor piece. And so I'll kind of take time out to work on something there. But I try, and then of course I'll have other commitments during the week, but I try to, if I can, save that space for writing. I try to take, when I get frustrated, I try to go out for a walk and clear my head, or I listen to a lot of podcasts about writing as I'm either making lunch or doing different chores around the house, to try to, I think it's so heartening to hear what other writers are doing and what works for them. And also to hear that, we're not in this alone. Everybody comes to that blank page with a bit of fear and trepidation.
What kind of podcast? Can you name a few?
Oh, sure. You know who I love? Camille Pagan. She is an author of a number of best-selling books, and she's also a book coach now. And hers is called You Should Write a Book. And what she does is, what I like is they're kind of maybe like 20 to 30 minute segments where she will speak with an author
Okay.
and kind of coach them through an issue that they're having. And
Ah.
she's very honest, but she's also very encouraging. So I appreciate that. I also love A Bookish Home, which is hosted by a librarian named Laura, and she interviews a lot of authors, and they'll talk about sort of their journey or different aspects of whatever novel or book they've had recently come out. So that's always interesting to hear. I listened to one that really made me feel better about an author who she loved a book. She had a book that did great, was a bestseller. She wrote another one, and her publisher said, "I'm sorry, that's not for us." So I guess you tend to think that when someone has achieved something, that the path is going to be straightforward, like they won't have those setbacks anymore, but that's not necessarily true. So I think it's important to keep in mind that, that the path does kind of vary. You're going to have ups and downs. It's not just a straight trajectory. And that I think it's also a good reminder to celebrate every win, every small win, because this is such a hard endeavor, as you well know. So
Yeah.
and
So
I was going to say, if I could just give another one. Another one I love
sure.
is a writerly lifestyle by David Gwynn. He interviews kind of everybody that might be helpful to an author. Let's say he'll bring on an agent, he'll bring on maybe a publicist, he'll bring on authors. So, and he's a writer himself, and he was querying his first novel, and then he got an agent. So I love hearing about that. But I mean, I could go on. I think I wrote a newsletter about the podcasts that I love, like listing
All
all of
right.
them.
Ah, nice. Okay, I should subscribe to your
Yes,
newsletter.
I'll send it to you.
Yes,
I
yeah.
feel
I love
like
newsletters. I read
yes, I'm always
newsletters.
going back and adding. And of course, I'm sure you listen to The Shit No One Tells You About Writing. That's a great one where two agents critique a query letter. And then usually for the second
Ah,
half hour,
okay, that's nice. Yeah.
they'll interview an author who shares their journey. And so I go anytime I'm, out for a walk or cooking dinner, I usually have a podcast keeping me company.
I listen to audiobooks a lot.
I
A
love
lot of
that.
the yeah, because especially when I walk the dog, that's like the best time.
It
And
is.
so, okay, let me think. So you are during the day, which is like I'm in a very similar situation, and maybe you can help me out. Maybe you can coach
I'll
me.
try.
So I spend, I write fiction and nonfiction, and I ghost write. I have lots of clients, and when it comes to my own work, I sort of like keep, postponing it because I have to, I have paying clients, right?
Right.
And then by the end of the day, you're either exhausted or you can't look at the computer anymore, especially if you do writing for a living. So how do you
Exactly.
manage between like writing fiction or like and writing for clients or like paying the bills through your writing and then you have your creative endeavors?
Right. I think that's a great question. I try to schedule time. I used to be better about this, but I would try to get up early. And that's the time I would devote to my own projects because then I thought it's kind of uninterrupted time. No one's awake yet. I'm not getting many emails. So I guess I would try between like 6 and 7 in the morning to devote a solid hour. Because I don't know about you, but I also feel that guilt of like neglecting my own projects.
Yeah.
It like weighs on you. And then also I think the longer you're apart from it, when you go back to it, you almost have to reread to get in that headspace and to
Yeah.
connect with those characters' voices again. So I
Yeah.
try not to let
Sometimes I forget the character's name. Like, who was this again?
exactly
It's
like what
just,
were you doing? And or
yeah.
I don't know about you, I'll leave myself notes. And this just happened to me yesterday. I had been working on another part of this book. And then when I read the note I had left myself for later in the manuscript, I thought, what did I mean by that? What was I telling myself to do here? So I have to get better about my personal notes. But I think maybe just even if I take a break, like let's say if I'm working on projects for clients, when I'm going to eat lunch, I'll say, okay, I'm going to eat, but I'm going to keep my manuscript open. And even if I just do a little bit of editing, sometimes that can
Mm,
spark an idea of like, okay, you made a note of this here. Like make sure you refer to this again later in the novel. And then I'll jot notes. And so even though it might not be a big chunk of time, I feel like at least I'm kind of touching the project or I'm still connecting with it.
okay.
But I also will try on weekends to devote that time to my writing, my personal stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Do you use any like specific tools to outline or to write your novel, or just the Word doc?
I'm just doing Word docs, which is, it's very messy. I will always say,
Okay.
with everything I write, I say to myself, you have to get a better process. But I know I've heard people talk about Scrivener, but I've
Scrivener, I
heard
use
mixed.
Scrivener, yeah.
Do you like it? I
I
always hear
love it,
mixed.
yeah.
Oh, okay. I always hear mixed things, that it's like a steep learning curve, but then other people say it's not. And then people say, I just went back to Word. I don't know.
For me, Scrivener, especially the first draft, like for this, my second novel that I'm working on, which is, I've been putting it off for years with no excuse. But the first draft for me was because you divide the chapters, right? So if you get an idea, you know exactly where to plug it in,
That's
and then you
nice.
can name the chapter. So you can have like name chapter like when the main character has a fight with her husband or whatever, right? That's like the chapter. And then like when you walk and then you're like, maybe she's gonna throw the glass of wine, like, and you remember, okay, I have to add this. So you
Right.
immediately go to the chapter and you plug it in. It makes it much easier for me because you visually see it. And also for me is the character, I find images of characters like
Ooh,
online, like celebrities, and then I plug them in, and every time, like, how does this character look like again? And so I go back, and this inspires me to add more description, like,
that's
she
great.
played with her long black hair, or he smiled and the dimples showed, or whatever, right?
That's a great idea.
And
Oh, I'm going to
so
have to try that.
yeah, try that. It helped. I'm all talk though. I wish I can go back to it, but I've
You'll get back to it. You will, right?
yeah, yeah. But that's I would highly recommend, at least for the first draft, and it sort of kind of takes the fear out of the first draft if you have it
That's a great idea.
subdivided into small tasks or like small chapters. So you just like start with naming the chapters and start plugging in and moving things around. It becomes like a puzzle. And it's
Yes,
so it makes it more of a game. And so you kind of trick your mind into having fun with it than dreading it. So that's
that's great. Yes,
that's
because right
kind of
now
the
I
way you
have
look at it.
about
Yeah.
37 Word documents open, and it's a
Yeah.
mess. It's a
That's
mess.
scary. I mean, that is, for me, that is scary. Like that would make me procrastinate. And then, like, the reason we procrastinate because we're dreading the task. And if you make
Right.
it fun, your mind will realize, okay, I'm not gonna procrastinate. I'm looking forward to this. So
Exactly.
yeah,
That's
so
great.
you
And then to see your characters, that must be like you're visiting
yeah.
old friends, right?
Yeah, because I forget, and I'm working on different projects and nonfiction and short stories, and like, who is this guy again? Like
That's
the
great.
person
But
that, yeah, but it's fun. Every time I talk with someone on the podcast, I get really fired up and inspired, and then like I go back to my novel, and then just and then get back to my other paying clients.
I
It's a
know it
problem.
is. It's very hard to divide. And I
Yeah.
think, too, when I mentioned Camille, I was very fortunate. She had me on as a guest. And one thing that I struggled with, and maybe you have some advice for me, but
Yeah.
that whenever I'll hit a roadblock in a manuscript, I'll think, well, I should be marketing the other books. Do you know what I mean? So then
Ah.
I will flick away and I'll contact a local bookstore, or I'll
Mm.
reach out to a podcast host, and then
Okay.
I kind of tell myself, okay, you're not working on that manuscript, but you're doing marketing for the other works, and that's just as important. But I have to. So her advice was kind of just block off chunks of time and tell
Yeah.
yourself, this is the time when I write, this is the time when I market.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think that because you feel very divided. Like, I want to work on this, but at the same time, I want to keep this thing going. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you have to wear a lot of hats.
I know, and with 3 kids. Oh God.
Right. I know. I always want to put them to work for me. I see other writers where they've got like their kids on almost an assembly line where they're helping pack and send out. But my boys are kind of like, you're on your own.
Yeah.
I
Both
don't know. How are you?
boys.
How are your
I
kids?
have 2 boys and a girl, so It depends on the mood. They make fun of me most of the time, but
Yes, I have that too.
um,
I know. And I don't know about your kids, but I will try to say, I don't know if you've seen certain authors, like big name authors will, for charity, they'll raffle off a name. Do you want to name a character in my book? Or would you like me to use your name as a character in my book?
ah.
So at dinner, I'll say to my kids, here's your opportunity. You can name a character, and nobody wants to play along. So,
That's a good idea. It's probably my 5-year-old would like it. The
that's
others,
good.
too busy with their video games to care.
Exactly. Right. Yes.
Yeah, that's fun. I'm actually taking them to. We go there every year. It's book festival here in Maryland called the Gaithersburg Book Festival.
Oh, how
Uh,
fun.
it's fun because they have like a huge children's section, and so they love meeting the authors, and they have all
That's
these books where the authors sign. So it's I try to to make them realize that like reading and writing is very important. So started
yes.
grooming them early early
I know,
on.
it's so important. I was such a huge reader, but of course, my husband and I will talk about growing up. We only had like three television channels. You know what I mean?
Oh
And you would
yeah,
just kind of watch reruns over and over
yeah,
again. So
yeah.
books were such a love of mine and such an escape. But today they have so many between what's
Yeah,
on their phone and all the million channels on TV and video games and
yeah. And I'm proud of my son because he wants us to go on Memorial Day's weekend. We live in Maryland, so he wants to go to Baltimore to see Edgar Allan Poe's house.
oh, how
So
cool!
it
Good
is
for
cool.
him.
Yeah, so he asked me to get him the collection of short stories by Edgar Allan
Oh,
Poe,
that's
and he's been
great.
reading it. So we're all excited to go to his house
Oh, I
over the
love that.
weekend. Yeah.
That's
And the
wonderful.
other two might complain, but I don't care.
Right.
I'm
They'll
dragging all of
appreciate it
them.
later, right? Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. But okay, so I always, like to conclude by asking the authors to give just tips and advice for anyone who's struggling or anyone who wants to write a book but just too overwhelmed, like or someone who is in the trenches and just want to give up. So what kind of advice would you give?
I would say, and this is something that I always talk about, is I very early on I joined a writing workshop, and that really kept me going because I think, like we were just talking about, you can make up so many excuses for yourself,
Yeah,
and they're
yeah.
all justifiable, especially if you're working. You only have so many hours in a day. So I signed up for a workshop before. I guess my memoir was the first full length work
Okay.
or project that I worked on. And I signed up for this workshop. And so every week I had to show up with 10 pages. And so
Okay.
that really kept me going. Almost like when people join a gym and you're like, well, I
Yeah.
have to go because I paid. I
Yeah.
felt like this, I couldn't show up empty handed. And then what I
Yeah.
love is that you would read your work aloud, which is another tip I would give. I think reading aloud really allows you to hear if you're overusing the same word, if you've mixed up your tenses, if the dialogue doesn't ring true. I think that's great. So we'd read aloud and then people would give you feedback right then. And so, sometimes it was hard to hear because you'd find out what wasn't working. But when you could hear somebody laugh at a line that you intended to be funny, or somebody gasp at something that you were hoping to get a reaction, that really was
Yeah.
inspiring to me to go back and go home and improve that chapter and then
Mm.
keep going forward. So that's something. I think it's also great because you hear, like, it seems like, especially if you're on social media, you see people announcing like, I just got a deal or I got an agent, and it
Yeah.
seems like everybody's getting ahead of you, but
Yeah.
and it's not that it's a competition, but it's easy to feel like, oh man, everybody else is achieving their goal or their
Mm.
dream and I'm still plodding away on chapter 2. And so I think to be in that workshop and to hear other people who are kind of in the trenches with you of working through that draft was really inspiring to think like I'm not in this alone. So and when I worked on The Perfect Neighborhood, I was also in a workshop for that. And unfortunately, COVID hit, but we were able to go online and still meet virtually. And that really
Okay.
kept me going.
And the workshop, was it, did you create the group, or was it like an organized thing, or
It's
how?
actually, so I'm in New Jersey, and it was through the Writers Circle, and
Okay.
they have, I guess, they have in-person sessions, and then they also have
Okay.
virtual, and they meet in different places around New Jersey. So they have a few outposts, so it's easy for people, I guess, if you're in North or Central Jersey, to hopefully find a location that's not too far from you,
Okay.
and so that really helped. And they offer, whether you're beginning your novel or revising your novel or you're working on nonfiction, they have a lot for children and young adults. So they offer a wide array. And so I felt really fortunate to have found them, and that really kept me going.
Ah, okay. Well, that's great.
And then I guess from one of my early sessions, a couple of people I met, now we'll still meet. We meet for lunch, but we used to meet and talk about our writing. But now, as life has gotten in the way, kind of we're all at different stages. One woman, she's still working on her memoir, and one of the other writers, he has a chapbook coming out. So he's put his short stories together and found a publisher. And so we're kind of all at different places, but we've stayed friendly, which is wonderful. So it's great to have that, kind of a friendship grow out of it that you didn't necessarily expect.
Great. So this been wonderful, Liz. And any
Thank you
final
so much.
thoughts before
No,
we
just I
conclude?
appreciate everything you do to bring readers and authors together. So thank you.
Ah, you're welcome. And for anyone who is listening, or watching, don't forget to check out Liz's book, The Perfect Neighborhood. So, and thank you everyone for spending this hour with us. And until we meet again.